guide, what unbiased language is, and the APA basics. And then also, I want to encourage questions. So if you have any questions, please type it in the chat, raise your hand. Taylor will be letting me know when there's questions in the chat, or if there are any raised hands. So please feel free to throw your questions in the chat or raise your hand at any point. I'll also have sections where I'll ask you all if you all have questions. So with that, let's start.
Ashley,
Yes.
I just wanted to remind everyone that there will be an evaluation form at the end, like an evaluation of the workshop, not like a test. So if you can stick around after the workshop's done to fill that out, that would be good.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for reminding me. All right, so with that, what are style guides? So it's pretty much a set of rules that outline how you should write to an extent, and how your writing should be structured and formatted. Style guides demonstrate how to cite your sources in text, how to format your resource list, how to utilize appropriate language, how to quote in a paper, how to format a paper or report, how to abbreviate, how and when to use footnotes, etc. They are sometimes called academic standards because they're mostly used in the academic setting. So why are they important? Well, they help establish a structure so that it's easier for the reader to read. They know what is coming up. They know where you got information from. They establish a set of structure, one commonly used and taught by many people in various roles for organization and formatting writing, utilizing and referencing research, integrating various quotes, integrating images, presenting content, information, etc. They also standardize an approach that makes it easier on the writer or the publisher, reader, professor. Again, it just makes it easier to read. It helps you prevent plagiarism. It's a form of professionalism. And just remember that you must be consistent. It's important to be consistent throughout your paper. Okay, so when are they needed? Obviously, we're all students. They're needed in the academic settings, in publishing, if you ever want to publish work, in academic journals, and also in the work setting. What are some style guides? Most commonly used in English classes is MLA. This is the APA workshop, so APA is very common. Chicago for history and whatnot. And also there's variations of APA depending on your professor of how they prefer you to conduct your research and how they want you to present your paper. Okay. So APA is used in nursing, psychology, business, sometimes sociology, economics, criminology, and healthcare administration as well. A lot of social work as well. And this is important to know that it emphasizes author and date. So if you're going to paraphrase something, you want to put the author's last name and the date it was published. Or if you're going to use like a direct quote or a narrative quote, we'll get into that later. You use their last name, and in parentheses, you put the year that it was published. So Austin 2010. Common features, APA style paper. There's footnotes, depending on your professor. They prefer you to use footnotes as well. There's headers for papers. It helps you organize the contents of the paper. It helps you produce bias-free language. It helps you cite reference, and you want to use the past tense because you're usually citing research that was done in the past, or present perfect tense, has explained. Okay, so APA language. You should typically use first person pronouns rather than third person when referencing your own research or study. So say you conduct some type of science experiments where you were the investigator and you're writing the paper or the report, you want to use I or we if it's in a group experiment or a group project. Just remember that language should be clear, concise, and direct. Make sure to use your writing, make sure your writing is not convoluted with unnecessary flowery pose. So my point is, get right to what you want to say and say it with conviction. So you want to use unbiased language. What is unbiased language? You want to eliminate anything that has like she, her when you're writing. So gender specific pronouns. Everyone must do their part. Everyone must do his part is biased because you're inferring like male group or whatnot. You want to make sure that you write everyone must do their part. That is unbiased. You want to eliminate sexist terminology. How do you do that? Instead of writing chairman or you want to do chairperson. Congressman, that's bias. Instead, write member of Congress or Congress member. That would be unbiased. When you're dealing with ages and generation groups, say like teenage boys have the highest risk, that's biased. What would be unbiased? It would be males ages 15 to 18 have the highest risk. That's unbiased because one, you just want to be as specific as you can to eliminate bias. The elderly are our biggest consumers. So just like to clarify and to be unbiased, you want to make sure you put adults ages 65 and older are our biggest consumers. When it comes to race and ethnicity, the Indians in the United States are demanding their land back. That is biased. Instead, you want to write something like members of the Cherokee Nation are requesting their land back. That's unbiased because you want to get as specific as you can. When it comes to socioeconomic status, poor families from low-income households qualify for assistance. That is biased. Instead, use families with a household income below $20,000 qualify for assistance. That would be unbiased. And when in doubt, ask. Ask your professor, come to the writing center, ask us, ask your peers, ask your neighbor, ask the person in front of you at the coffee shop, right? Just don't be afraid to ask. And any questions?
Yeah, let me ask.
Sure.
Bartender.
Questions? Okay. Any questions in the chat, Taylor?
I had a question. What if like your article that you have and you try to cite it and there's no known author to it?
We'll get to that soon. I just wanted to get into the biased language just to let you all know.
Okay, thank you.
How to write. We'll get into the reference, the basics, but to answer your question real short, just omit the author and go to the organization.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
There were no questions in the chat except for like things for T. So yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Again, if you have questions, feel free to put it in the chat or stop me. So APA elements, make sure it has an APA paper has a title, an abstract, a text, the text, references, and sometimes they have footnotes, tables, figures, and appendices. Fonts, usually Times New Roman, you can't go wrong with that. Make sure it's double space, no blank lines, 1-inch margin. That's pretty easy because Google and MS Word, that's often the defaults. There's particular instances of alignment and indentation. There's heading levels. Make sure you use a variation of sentence length. You want to use complex and complex sentences and simple sentence, integrate it all. And just remember that this is a scientific paper, not a creative or literary writing. So no contractions, no colloquialisms and jargon. Try to avoid that if you can. Verb tense and past tense, again, you're dealing with research done in the past. So you want to use past and use they pronouns when you are dealing with a third person singular pronoun. Okay, in-text basics. I think we covered this pretty much. We'll go into the 4 major components: the title page, abstract, and main body, and references. So the title page should look something similar like this. This is a student title page. This is the title of your paper, your name, the department that you're in, your university, Cal State Long Beach, the class that you're in, and your professor's name, and the date, the due date. Okay, so abstract. What's in an abstract? It's a new page, new header. First line is going to be abstract title like this. And it's pretty much a 250 word paragraph that states your research topic, your research questions, your participants, methods, results, data analysis, conclusions, and possible implications in the future work. So you want to make sure it's concise, straight to the point. And here's an example of what it looks like. Usually keywords are needed if you are going to publish. This would be the running header and the page number. Any questions about the abstract? Great. Let's move on. So in-text citation. When using the APA format, follow the author date method of the in-text citation. This means that the author's last name and the year of publication for the source should appear in the text. For example, Jones, 2019. When including page numbers, use PP for single page. For multiple page numbers, use PP. For a single page, use P period. This is not very common unless you're writing a direct quote, but usually professors just require the last name and the year when you're doing in-text citations. So this is called the parenthetical citation, which usually comes after the sentence and before the period. When you're paraphrasing some research before that was done before. So in this case, it'd be Jones 2019, 2019. When you're doing a direct quote, say you're taking something specific from a paper and you're using it in your paper, use the direct quote and use the author's last name and the year and the page number of where it was found. And if you're going to integrate like narrative quotes, say like you're going to reference research according to Smith, according to another last name. I can't think of the last name right now. Then you use the author's last name, and the year, in this case would be 2021 in paragraphs. Okay, so that's fine. One author, pretty easy. Author, last names, comma, 2020 for the parenthetical citation. And if in the narrative, again, you put Smith outside of the parentheses and only put the year in the parentheses. Two authors, you put their both last names in the parenthetical citation with the ampersand in the middle and the year. And it goes as well for narrative citation, like according to Smith and Jones, and then the year goes in parentheses. However, if there's three or more authors, all you need is the first author's last name and et al. In the parenthetical citation. And when you're doing a narrative citation, you say according to Smith et al. And then you put the year in the bracket, in the parentheses. Now, that's only for in-text citation. If you're doing the references, then you have to write out every single author of the paper. All right, so in-text citation. So if there's multiple sources for one citation, say for example, several papers say the same thing on this one topic, then you're going to want to use all the research, all the authors' last names, the years, separated by a semicolon, and the order is from first to last. So from the recently published to the later published. So it goes by year. So 2021, Jones 2020, Smith 2017. When you're doing like a citing in a study that you're reading, but it's not the actual study itself, my recommendation and just what I do, I go to the study itself and quote it, but sometimes you want to do like what I call a citation inception, right? So you're quoting GAF 2014 as cited in Jones 2020. So you saw the argument in this research paper, this author's research paper, but they're citing this author. So that's when you use as cited in. But again, I would go straight to the source. We have wonderful resources on our campus, databases. We're pretty sure you could find it pretty easy. No author, this goes to the question before. If there's no author, use the institution, because I know this is the health administration, healthcare administration department. So you're going to be using a lot of like CDC studies, a lot of Department of Education studies, a lot of Department of Health studies. So if there's no author, which is very common for government institutions, just use the institution. If there's no date, don't put a date. Only include the information that you have, and don't make up anything like say, oh, you got it off the website at this date. Just don't put it in if you're not 100% sure. Any questions so far about in-text citation? Okay, none, Taylor?
No.
All right, thank you. So how do you organize your papers? There are different types of headers. There's 3 levels of headers. The first one is center, bolded, title case. And we'll look at an example right now. And the second one is left aligned, bolded, title case. And then the third one is all of the above with the italicized. So what does it look like? let's go here. All right, so it looks like this. This is level 1 heading. This is in the center. So it's like a new section of the paper. This is the subsection. This is a level 2 heading. Again, it's title case and left aligned and bolded. And then the third level is the subsection of the subsection. So it's going to be left aligned, bolded, and italicized. All right, so any questions so far?
So subheadings should be bolded and italicized. This is what you said, right?
Yes, depending on where the subheading is. So like say you're writing a paper, your introduction, you're going to be using the title of your paper for the introduction. And that's going to be in the center. And then say another section, you have the literature review. You're going to write that in the center because it's a different section, right? And then the subsection of the literature review is it's bolded, left aligned. And if there's another subsection within that, then it's going to be italicized. So it depends on where the subsection is and how you want to organize your paper. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for your question. Great question. Any other questions?
People are asking about the PowerPoint being shared, and I know that the meeting is being recorded. I was wondering if we could address how that is being shared with the general audience.
I think I don't know if I could give out the PowerPoint. However, like you said, the meeting is being recorded and there's a link to it. But let me get back to your president and we'll coordinate something if we could share the PowerPoint.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Ashley.
Okay. All right, so APA references. Here are some basic rules. We'll go into detail later in a bit. References, all author names should be inverted for your reference list at the end of the paper. Last name should be provided first, and then the author's initial, first initial and middle initial. So it should look like this in the reference page, not in parentheses, but it should look like that. Make sure it's alphabetized for multiple authors by the same, for multiple articles by the same authors or authors listed in the same order. List the entries from earliest to most recent. From earliest to from earliest to most recent published. There we go. When referencing titles of books, chapters, articles, report, web pages, or other sources, capitalize only the first letter of the first word of the title and subtitle. And we'll take a look at that later in a bit. Italicized titles of longer works, such as books, edited collections, name of newspapers, and so on. Do not italicize, underline or put in quotes the titles of shorter works, such as chapters in books or essays in edited collections. That's the MLA way. This is the APA way. You don't do that. Reference page is double spaced with a hanging indent. Again, we'll look at an example in a bit on the second line of each reference. And the word reference should be at the top, centered, and bolded. So the 4 elements that you need are, is the author, date, title, and the source. Okay, so for basic academic journals, you're gonna wanna write the title of the journal in full and italicize the journal titles. Mainly Maintain any non-standard punctuation and capitalization that is used by the journal in its title. And then capitalize all the major words in the titles of the journal. Capitalize the first word of the titles and the subtitles of the journals, and don't italicize, underline the article or wrap in quotes. However, you do italicize the journal, and I believe we do have an example right now. Okay, so this is for an example of an academic journal. Here we have all the last names done by importance. So this is the first author, second author, third author, fourth, fifth. So in the reference, you do use all their names in the reference page. However, in text citation, all you have to do is Grady, Grady et al. Period, comma, 2019. And here is the name of the article. Right here, see how it's titled, the first letter in the first word is title, and then after the comma, the subtitle, the first letter is the first letter of the first word is capitalized, as well as United States, because it's a proper noun. So make sure you capitalize all proper nouns as well. In italicized, this is the name of the journal. This is the volume of the journal. It's also italicized. And this is the issue. 3 is in parentheses. Here are the page numbers, followed by a period. And this is the DOI, where where your professor could find the research. Here's another example. Again, every author is listed. The date, and also followed by the name of the article, who published it. And if it's an online only publication, then all you do is put the DOI right here. This indicates that it was published at one point, and you could actually get a physical copy. This is published, but only online. Okay, so for any questions about journals?
Ashley, for that particular example, are we allowed to put et al. Since there's like 5 authors?
No, this is for the reference page at the end of your paper. At the reference page, just put all the authors. It's only when you use et al. Is when you do it in text citations.
Got it, thank you.
If you're quoting, or if you're quoting this research, or if you're paraphrasing this research in the paper, then you do Grady et al. Or Torino et al. And the dates. But in the reference page, every single author gets listed.
Okay, so et al. Is only for our in-text citations.
Yeah.
Got it.
Did that clarify your question, or
Oh
did
yeah,
that answer your question? Great, thank you, great question. Any other questions?
No questions in the chat.
Thank you. All right, so moving on to book rules. So a book, you're putting it in the reference page. You use the authors and your, you use the author's last name and the initial, first initial first and middle initial second, your publication, title of work, and then a capital letter for the subtitle and the publisher. So this is pretty much an easy an easy reference. However, if there's no author, a book with no author, say it's a textbook, it's just a collection of various sources, right? If there's no author, bring the title work to the front. So instead of using the author, you're going to put the title of the work. So say gentrification in Los Angeles, date 2021, and then the publisher and whatnot. However, if there is like an editor, use the editor's name. So editor's first initial, middle initial, and the editor right here, year of publication, again, title of work, and everything goes the same as before. Article, print, or online. Say like you're gonna quote something from like the New Yorker or the New York Times, a statistic of some sort. Then you want to use the author last name, the year, the title of the article, the title of the periodical, like the New York Times, the New Yorker, volume number and issue number, if you have that information, pages, if there is. If not, if it's just online, just write the URL or the DOI. All right, so here's an example of book references. So right here we have the editor, year 2020, the name of the book, and the publisher, Academic Press. Right here we have the author of the book, the name of the book, and the publisher. Okay, any questions about books? Okay, great. So website rules, I went over it a little bit before, but here's a little bit of in-depth. So web page, you want to use the author's last name, first initial, middle initial. This is where it differs. So you put the year 2020, the month, and the date that it was published. Again, if none of this information is you can find none of this information, just use the year. Or if there's no year, put ND, and we'll look at an example of that in a bit.
Ashley?
Title of page. Title of the page of the article of where you found like some type of statistics or quote, the site name, and the URL. Then here is
Ashley?
yes.
There's a question in the chat about abstracts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's asking how long does the abstract have to be, and can we use the introduction as the abstract?
No, you don't really use the introduction as an abstract. But the abstract, excuse me, is 250 words, give or take. And it includes like the topic of what your paper is, your research question, if you have one, just the summary of your whole paper and the conclusion and everything in between. Does that answer your question? It's a great question. All right.
And
All
someone
right.
said to put ND if there's no year. Is that what you said?
Yeah, yes. Okay. And then,
To add to the abstract, are there any rules regarding like keywords? Like number?
not necessarily. If your professor does require you to put keywords, it's usually the topic of your paper, of what you're researching. Say like billing in healthcare administration or something like that. Healthcare administration would be a keyword followed by say billing, or another one is, I'm not too familiar with many topics in healthcare administration, but yeah, just like 3 or 4 would be good. Again, most of this, the keywords is usually for publishing or whatnot. Sometimes professors want you to add them in your abstract, but it's not necessarily required. Just ask your professor if they require that.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you. Great question. Okay. So you are citing the New Yorker. So you want to use the last name of the author, first initial, year that it was published and the date, September 9th. Again, and the title of the article is just case titled, and then italicizes New Yorker, and make sure you put the New Yorker hyperlink, or not the hyperlink, but the address of where the title is, or where the article is. All right, so to sum it up, double space, alphabetical order, hanging indentation. And here's an example of how it would look like in your paper. So it's double space, hanging indent right here, authors, date, title of the article, title of the journal, title of the book, publisher, title of the article, and the periodical that it's at. Okay, so references, final tips. Hold on, let me show you a reference page.
I have a question here.
Yes,
Sometimes you just, where the link is, the hyperlink, you put the space bar or you hit enter, it becomes a link, not just source. So should we do that? Just leave it as is? Because in
yeah,
your
just
example,
leave it as is. You could do the hyperlink, or you could take off the hyperlink. Again, it depends on how you want to put it. I haven't encountered many professors that are picky about it, but you might want to ask your professor if they want the hyperlink, or if they want you to just put the address.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, great question. All right, so here is an example of a reference, page, author's last name, all this information that we went over. Here is the American Association of University Professors, and here, this is what it would look like if there's no date. Background facts, and then the link to the research. Here is one with like a periodical, it looks like. So it's the year, the date that it was published, and the article. Yeah, so I'll be giving you all some links for you all to have to reference, and I'll just sum up what we went through. Some final tips. Mix in citations, match in-text citations with the reference list. So make sure everything that's in the reference list is in your citation, and make in-text citations, and make sure your in-text citations are in your reference list. Double check your punctuation use in your references. Sometimes there's like periods and commas. It depends on how detail oriented your professor is. They might knock off points, they might not. Adapt references when needed. So again, if there's no dates, no information on the author, don't put it in. Follow the proper rules and considerations for personal communications. Again, like, don't use biased language, and don't use anonymous unless the text is presented as such. So again, no author, don't use anonymous. If only use anonymous if they are attributing that work to anonymous. So yeah, no information, no, don't put it in. Okay, and this is very important. We're all students, we all like shortcuts, and it's very tempting to use the citation machines. There's even a link in the library for a citation machine. My word of advice is it, if you're going to use it, go for it, but make sure you double check with the resources that you have. There's for dual L, because oftentimes they are wrong. So just double check if you're going to use the citation, but hopefully I gave you a lot of information that you won't need to use one. So with that, is there any final questions or comments?
If we can have the PowerPoint as an email or something, because this is very informative.
Yeah, we'll work something out with your president and they'll send you something.
And for the roll call, do we just sign it in the
The
chat?
what?
For the roll call, you said we need to sign our names in the chat box.
Ty?
Yes, we have signed form at the beginning and throughout the chat box as well. So right now we just upload it again. So anybody joining late, yeah, you can fill out the sign sheet. Yes.
And I just linked the evaluation form for this particular workshop. So if you go ahead and fill that out, that's another like proof of attendance. I think it emails you. Ashley, if you know how
Yes.
the things.
I'm not sure how it emails you, but it does, yeah, it does email you if you need this for some type of record that you were at in this presentation. You'll have a copy of that in your email. So make sure your email is correct when you put in that, when you submit your form.
There's a question in the chat, Ashley, about
Oh, that's a great question. If a professor requires us to include a word count, where will we put it? I would put it in the title page, just underneath all the information. Click enter a couple of times and put word count, colon, and then put however words that you have in. That's a great question. All right, so hopefully you all, I know you all are getting bombarded with links. Stop on by the University Writing Center if you have any further questions, if you need help on any type of paper, research and whatnot. I really highly suggest Purdue OWL. It's a great resource for everyone to have the APA website, the library. Don't use a generator, pretty much. So with that, I want to thank you all. Thank you for having us here at your meeting.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Taylor, for being here. So before we close the meeting, we just want to go over again a little bit for everybody who joined late. So again, we're gonna have our next event on this Friday, the 21st. It's about career in healthcare administration. So if you wonder what you can do with your degree, or if you want some career guidance, definitely join this meeting on next Friday. Oh, sorry. And then another one is our advisory board survey. We really appreciate any answers for this survey. You guys feel free to share your experience about HCA program. We use this information confidentially to improve our program and voice our concern to the department. And we have some open leadership positions. The application is still open right now. So if you're interested in these, feel free to fill out the form. And we're looking forward to all applicants, and we will welcome everybody. And that should be it. It's just some membership requirement. Again, we will have our cashnet for duos coming up soon. So right now we cannot collect membership duo yet. So in the meantime, if you want to join our organization, feel free to do that through BitSync. And that's it. I think that's all we have today. I will stay to answer any question if there are in the chat box, as well as unmute yourself if you have any question for us. If not, thank you for joining our meeting today, and we're looking forward to see you guys in the next event.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.